Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. So I'm Ryan with PropFuel. I'm joined here by Lauren San Martin with Vex, and we're super excited. We're going to just give everyone a moment to kind of come in. It's kind of that filing in point wherever we see everyone kind of coming in. But we'll get started here in probably 20 seconds or so. Looks like people are kind of flowing in. Um, yeah, it looks like maybe everyone, maybe we're kind of getting close there. We could probably get rolling. So again, so I'm Ryan Graham with PropFuel, and this is today's webinar, Beyond the Binary: Why Members Leave and How to Find Out Before They're Gone. So I'm joined here by Lauren from Vex. Lauren, you want to introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit about Vex?
Sure. So I'm Lauren San Martin. I'm the Director of Membership and Marketing at VEX. We're the Veterinary Emergency and Critical Care Society. And I have been with VEX for about 6 years now. We were a team of four when I started at VEX, and we're now a team of 14 or 15. It's
Wow.
getting harder to keep count. And we were about 4,000 members at that time, and are now at about 10,400. So we've been having a lot of change and growth, and it's exciting, but also brings a lot of new challenges.
Wait,
So
let me just back up there for a second. You were at 4,000 members when you started, and now you're over 10,000 members?
Correct.
Okay, that's phenomenal. I don't think I realized that like substantial jump. That's wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's been exciting and challenging, of course. At VEX, our mission is to inspire excellence in emergency and critical care for animals by cultivating an inclusive community and empowering one another to thrive. So the bulk of what we do as an organization is provide really high level emergency and critical care CE. And we are pretty unique in that space. And we offer 12-month memberships on anniversary renewal. And so that's sort of our structure. And we've been around since 1974. And we're led by our original founder
Hmm.
up until just about 5, 6 years ago, 6 years ago.
Okay. That's awesome. And remind me again, where are you located?
So our headquarters is in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay, cool. Okay, nice. Awesome. Thank you for that background. Again, that's super impressive. Just for everyone, just quickly about PropFuel, if you're not familiar with PropFuel, our whole kind of focus as a company is to help associations make membership meaningful at a high level. We're a membership insights and engagement platform. And what I'll kind of tell you is the unique aspect of what we do, and it really is kind of the why behind it is we see associations really want to be able to create an experience, and they kind of provide the same promise to their members, which is they want to serve their professional life. But like at the end of the day, becomes really challenging is having the right information to know about each individual member to really create an experience that is personalized and relevant to them. So, ultimately, like aside from that promise, what happens is members kind of get the same stuff. They get the same newsletter, the same event communication, the same renewal appeal, the same, long form, new member onboarding emails. And what happens is members kind of think, hey, maybe this organization isn't for me at a certain point, or can think that because at the end of the day, it's like they don't really feel like they're known. And so what PropFuel does that's really unique is we go beyond kind of that one-way push of information to members, and really focused on creating a continuous loop of insight, and then automating the engagement process, and the data collection process behind it. So what PropFuel does really effectively today, and kind of what is at the core of what we do, is we're focused on asking members questions in email, text message, website, taking the insight from that, because at the end of the day, an answer to a question is completely different than a behavioral data point. Behavioral data points still have kind of guesswork baked into them. So we capture that insight, use that to then take action. And that action looks like automating a next step in engagement, creating a journey, updating a data field in the AMS to segment members, so on and so forth. So that's kind of at the core of what PropFuel does. And what we see is renewal standpoint, let's say, the problem that an association faces is, members don't renew or they lapse. And like, what does that actually mean? We talk with so many, so we have, just for context, we have about 330 clients. They're all associations, different sizes, different, industries, all that sort of thing. But there's a unifying kind of through line, which is all the time we hear associations say, yeah, we're lapsing members or we're not renewing members, and we don't know why. It so basically, like if I'm an association staff person, I'm probably going to look into the member record and see what we know about them. So I'm going to look in my AMS and I'm going to say, hey, you know, we know their status has lapsed. We know they haven't paid their dues. Maybe we kind of know the last couple of things that they did behaviorally, but like what's missing is what is their intent? And being able to assess that intent at different steps along the way. So we're guessing, and that guessing then leads to sending out these broad communications. So, member doesn't renew, then we're going to send everyone who hasn't renewed within a certain period of time, maybe a discount offer. Or everyone who hasn't renewed, we're going to, ask them or tell them about some upcoming, continuing education programs that are available with membership. And at the end of the day, maybe none of that is relevant to people. Maybe they've retired. Maybe they moved to a different industry. Maybe they're just not seeing those communications at all. Or maybe we see this all the time. Maybe they prefer to renew a different way. So like one of the things that we see clients doing is asking lapsed members, hey, how would you like to renew your membership? Phone, email, paper, mail copy, credit card. Like there's all of these kind of, rungs there. It's just not a one-dimensional thing. And so like these assumption gaps really could be filled with anything. And that's the intriguing aspect of this is, you assume, hey, a member hasn't renewed. Okay, they must really not be having a great experience with us. Oh, well, we come to learn like they're on maternity leave. We had no idea. And there's ways that we can get out in front of these things, but it is by asking members, getting their direct intent, getting an understanding of where they stand, why they stand there, and then being able to be adaptive to that. So, when you look at like the assumptions versus what's actually happening, these like never really match up. Like without real answers, we're just kind of like standing there, staring into the void. And I say we, I say we. I'm putting myself in the shoes of in Lauren, in your shoes. I'm putting myself in the shoes of an association staff person running membership. And so in that, we think about kind of moving from the binary approach of like the member paid, they didn't pay, they renewed, they didn't renew. They, we know this about them, we don't know this about them, to really kind of being able to look at things in more of a triage or kind of a layered fashion. Like not they have or they haven't. They haven't renewed yet. Okay, why haven't they renewed yet? What's their preference? And then being able to weave that into the experience that they have. So, for example, if a member tells us, like, I haven't renewed yet, and it's actually more convenient if I renew over the phone, we take their renewal over the phone. Then maybe next year we say, hey, last year you renewed with us over the phone. Is that still your preference for renewal method? Because now what you're expressing to the member is you know them, like the things that they've done with you, the way they've interacted, their preferences, that is following them versus them just being in this, big trough, so to speak, and just feeling like they're getting everything everyone else is getting. And so when we can make that move away from binary to being able to like triage things and kind of look at things in a more layered way, it creates some really valuable insights and opportunities to engage members in specific ways. And that's obviously what we're going to be spending a lot of time on today. Instead of hearing me kind of blab on and on, uh, Lauren, do you want to talk a little bit about Vex's renewal challenge?
Uh, um, so I would say we had a renewal challenge and also just a lot of renewal questions, and a lot of we call them sort of like um or I call them like inherited stories or beliefs. And so when you come
Yeah.
into an organization, if you weren't the one that started it, a lot of things happened before you got there. And so one of the things that I would hear when I arrived on the scene was, people only renew their membership when they are going to annual or they, it's these different things. these are all ER folks, and so the hospitals have to remain staffed. So everybody has to switch off every other year when they go to annual, and then they only renew when they're doing that. Just these kind of beliefs that you're like, I don't know if that's true or not. As membership grows, there's people who are brand new. We don't know if they're included in that belief or not. Um, in addition to like as my job managing marketing, you're running on most associations are running on a tight budget, and everybody usually the board level or the executive level is saying, did it work? Did it work? And you're like, I don't know. I have a belief. Again, it's a lot of so I'm like, I want answers. And in addition to that, when our AMS is sending an email out that says, hey, you're expiring in 30 days, it tells me nothing. It maybe tells the member
Yeah.
something if they receive it. It maybe tells them something if they're not unsubscribed, and things like that. And so this is a good way for me to it's funny because I always believe a lot in diversifying communications, and it's funny because Prop Fuel, although it's email, also allows me to diversify my communications even within email. So I can do an
Hmm.
e blast out of one system, and I can do something that I'm expecting engagement on out of Prop Fuel, and it changes the unsubscribe situation, right?
Yeah.
Out of a system
Yeah.
that we've had forever. I've had members come to me. I didn't get an email about Spring Symposium, and they've been a member or they've been unsubscribed for 7 years
Right.
to my old list. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so bringing a new channel in, even though it is still coming in through email, is an advantage as well. And then, of course, survey fatigue, right? So we're
Yeah.
going to send a survey and it's 27 questions and it takes you an hour and you're going to stop in the middle and then start over. And that can be a mess. So I think something about Prop Fuel that we love is that it is visual, it is simple. I can see from the moment I open the email that I have only two choices, and it's a yes or a no or something like that. Um, and so that is another thing that I have loved about Prop Fuel and kind of a solution that we found in it as well. Um,
That's awesome. So talking about the campaign setup side of things a little bit then, yeah.
Yeah, so we engaged with Prop Fuel using their managed services option. We are, again, even though we've grown a bit, we're a small team, we're pretty lean. And with their expertise, they were able to help us set up a renewal and win back campaign. The difference being that the renewal campaign starts going out, I think, about 60 days before expiration. And that campaign ends upon expiration. And then if they have not yet renewed at that time, they will get funneled into the win back campaign, which starts a week after, I want to say a week after expiration and goes through like 12 weeks after they expire. And so that is a really great way to just slowly, I have found, like, I think when I first started at Vex and kept hearing how busy our members were and how they work unusual schedules, my like go-to was I don't want to bother them. And
Yep.
then I think I've changed that mindset to go, actually, the more I can gently nudge them in a very uninvasive way, the easier it is for them to go, oops, forgot to do that. Thanks for the
Yeah.
reminder. So that has been a definite change in my mindset as well.
So it's so interesting you say that because I remember a couple of years ago hearing a client and they had been using Propfuel for a while, I think, if I remember correctly. And but the thing that they said was the renewal communications that they've been sending forever were asking for a home run from the member, meaning like the call to action was renew now.
Yep.
And so the member knows if I click that button, I'm going to have to go through step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, log in, put, credit card, the whole thing, right? And like they may not have, to your point, they may not have the time for that. So the thing that they were saying is the comparative is PropFuel is more like asking for a single. Like we're not asking like renew now. We're saying, are you planning to renew? And then let kind of the association or the system do kind of some of the work to nudge the member towards the next step. Because even if they don't take that next step, exactly to your point, but they say like, yes, I'm planning to renew right now, or I'm planning to renew my membership this year, but they don't in that setting. Great. Let's then add them to another campaign, re-nurture them. Hey, we know you're planning on renewing. Why have you not done so yet? Or how can we help you to? But like the difference is we know their intent. So I love that idea of like the small nudges, like you said.
Yeah, and I know like right, all of our most valuable resource at this, I think, at this time in life is time, right?
Yeah.
So it's like then I'm at a place now where I'm like I am glad for reminders for things like that because it
Yeah.
isn't because I don't want to and it isn't because it's just a matter of trying to put out the hottest fire first, right? So,
Exactly. And balance, keep all the plates spinning at the same time.
right. And so this is a some like a screenshot on the left of what the member sees when we send out our renewal campaign. And so it is the main question, as Ryan just mentioned, is just are you planning to renew your membership? And then it shows a little bit here. So as I mentioned, they're getting question one 60 days before expiration, and then a second question 15 days before expiration. But the great thing is as Ryan started out talking about the personalization aspect, is not everybody is getting the same question or all the questions because they have the chance to tell us, hey, you know what, like this is not a good time for me. And then I'm not sending them the gentle nudges because they've told me they don't want them. And that way I can, personalize that to my members. And so you can kind of see here, for one, the engagement rate. Prior to Prop Fuel, I wouldn't have received 798 answers to anything. And this is actually just a portion of our members because it is only those members who have come up for renewal between when we launched this in May and now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because it's, the benchmark typically, or the benchmarks typically from an email standpoint are open rate and then click-through rate. And I don't know the exact click-through rate for these campaigns, but like, typically email click-through rate, if you get, I don't know, 1.5 to 2%, like you're doing okay. But like typically our clients are seeing, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, up to 15+% click-through rate to an email. And then you have the added benefit of the context or the value of the response versus just kind of a generic click. Yeah, yeah. And I love y'all, the design elements of the emails are well done too, the way that y'all kind of organize things here. Makes it quick and simple.
And so the results that we've seen on our renewal campaign, which again is just the 60 days prior. So the only people getting put into this are people who are expiring within 60 days. We have had 886 direct conversions from this campaign. And something that I credit to Prop Fuel is that I am kind of a pain when it comes to analytics. I have so many questions and I want to know exactly what each data point means and what it means for me. And so something that I love is that we keep the conversation going. So when I first was getting results to this campaign, I was getting what was, conversions, and it was anyone who received this email and ended up renewing. And I actually asked them for a second dashboard that shows not only that, but people who engaged with this campaign and then renewed. And
Yeah.
so my conversions are almost double this, but then I'm seeing direct conversion. So they received my email, engaged with it, and then renewed very soon after. And so I can attribute the 165,000 plus $1,000 in revenue directly to this campaign, which is really great for me to be able to have that data.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, you're spot on with a lot of that. And it's, the engagement rates, the response rates, that sort of thing, without going too far down the rabbit hole of them. And like, for example, here, the 21% response rate that's an equal to click-through rate number. So yeah, yeah,
And so, as I mentioned before, so we have that renewal campaign ending on expiration. And for those who did not get the chance to renew during those 60 days prior to expiration, if they have not told us specifically that they do not plan to renew, which again, I love because then we're only continuing to communicate with those who have not shown us that, they're not ready at this time. We'll start getting this. So they'll get question one, 2 weeks after they've expired, and then another question 4 weeks after they've expired. And so the example on the left is that first email that they get 2 weeks after expiration, just actually asking them if they're aware it's lapsed. And I love seeing these answers because you see that in the middle graphic there that 73%,
78.
I think,
Yeah, yeah,
are saying no. And I love that because it's like, okay, technically all of these people should have been in our renewal campaign and were, and they're still telling us, no, I didn't know it lapsed. And so I didn't see those first ones. They missed me. They went to, the wrong inbox. I don't know, whatever it is, right? Or I've just been busy. And so they're keeping this door open for us and we're able to continue engaging with them. And so then 4 weeks later, or 2 weeks later, if they have not then renewed, then we will ask them again if they are planning to reinstate their membership. And they're able to tell us there. We still get many yeses. Again, the majority then is still yes. And so it also gives you that knowledge of what Ryan started to get into earlier, of it isn't just gloom and doom. It isn't just no one's ever going to renew. It's really just keeping up with them is a big part of it.
Yeah. I mean, from my standpoint, from our standpoint, the 78%, I mean, like that's such an interesting number. I mean, I personally love seeing that. I mean, that's tough to see. Like 78% of members didn't know that their membership had lapsed. I mean, that's crazy because you think about all the communications you've sent and the build up to it and all the things that as an association you feel like you have done to
Yeah.
prepare members to know their renewal is coming up and that their membership has lapsed, and then for them to say that.
Right.
Um, but
And
that just speaks to the reality of things.
it definitely does. And just to add in, it's not even just Prop Fuel communication. So they had received our two
Right.
renewal emails in Prop Fuel, plus the ones coming from the AMS. And I believe we have one text message worked in there as well. Now that is limited by opt-ins, but
Yeah.
it's like now they've received what, 4 or 5 things and they're still like, "Just didn't know I lapsed."
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But then, and then to your second point, like having like this data down here of like, why have you let your membership lapse? I mean, when you look into this, like, the great thing is you can know this, like you have this to reference, but like the more valuable thing about this is you can be responsive to each one of these using PropFuel. So
Yep.
like not if 9% say my employer, and I don't know how you'll address this in each circumstance, but for example, if you say 9% who said my employer won't pay for that this year, so that's 10 people basically, you could then immediately be responsive to them and say, hey, did you know we have an employer payment package, so on and so forth, or 6% wasn't seeing value, you could say, hey, we're doubling down our efforts on X, Y, and Z over the course of the year. Like the great thing about this that is completely different than a survey is, that survey data lives in a dusty spreadsheet somewhere. And like, who knows when you look at it. But like, this is all actionable data immediately and then on an ongoing basis to nurture these members to, basically towards their edification and like understanding of like how you can meet them where they're at.
Absolutely. And I think there's a little bit to say about the narrative too, right? Is like, again, when you are telling yourself, I don't want to bother them, I don't want to bother them, they're doing something important, they're saving lives, and I don't want to bother them. But then you see something like that 78%, and you go, I'm not bothering them, I'm helping them, I'm
Right.
reminding them. And that really is a challenge, I think, for a lot of people. When you can't see that type of reply, you just go, I don't want to
Yeah.
be a nuisance, right? That's not my role.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really important too.
I agree. And I feel like I hear it all the time. I hear from associations and like I'm sure at some point y'all have probably said something to this effect, which is like our members tell us they're getting too many emails from us. And, although that is factual or like there is a reality to that, the fact is, what we see is once clients start sending more relevant communication to members, the members, it's not the problem. The problem isn't that they're getting too much, it's that they're getting too much that is highly irrelevant to them. And it makes them feel overwhelmed and like they're getting too much. But like we see it with clients all the time where their engagement rate spikes after they've been using Propul for a period of time because members kind of get into this rhythm of now I'm getting stuff that's relevant to me. I'm going to engage with this. I'm going to get more stuff relevant to me, and now their experience starts to kind of to change.
Absolutely. And I will add in really quick, it's not in the presentation, but for those who are not familiar with Prop Fuel or very familiar, the landing page aspect. So your options when people answer certain things, you're taking them on this like choose your own adventure experience.
Yeah,
And there's so many options, right? You can redirect them to a URL directly. You can put them into, a different list that you'll use later. But then in addition to that, you have this landing page option, which supports GIFs and things to be embedded. And that's also fun. Like I noticed when we started using Prop Fuel, people would click because you can look on an individual basis. Like, and some people were just clicking to see what GIF was going to pop up or something like that. So that engagement too is like they are more interested. It's not just a
Yeah.
blast where it's a paragraph that everybody read that was the same. It's this individualized experience, even within the one email.
Yeah, I love that. That's yeah, thank you for saying that. That's awesome.
So this is just additional. So this, because
Yeah.
this campaign had 4 questions, it's just additional results, and still seeing like question 4 at the end is getting, for that being a narrowed amount of people, right? You're
Yeah.
still getting great engagement. Again, like I might not get that engagement on one e-blast that I'm sending.
Yeah.
And this is the 4th question that they've received.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a consistency factor to this. Yeah.
So this is, I love this because this is an additional, right? So this is the same folks who were getting the renewal campaign. This is in addition to that. And so now I'm getting that additional 685 direct conversions. Again, same as I mentioned before, these are people who got the email, engaged with it, and renewed. 685 of our members. And as a reminder, again, that was only since last May, so not even a year yet. And then that's that additional 121,000 in revenue.
Awesome. I'm curious. Someone asked a question. I'm curious your experience with this, Lauren. So someone said they were just kind of commenting in the chat, and they said, "Hey, we've also seen an increased engagement with personalized plain text email renewal reminders rather than formatted marketing emails." And I love the fact that they are experimenting in that way. So the way that I kind of hear that, the way I contextualize it is sending more kind of one by one, Outlook or Gmail driven, text emails, and actually like personalizing within that. The thing that, well, let me ask you this first. Like, is that anything that y'all had experimented with before using Prop Fuel?
The only thing I think, compare to that is that
Yeah,
we would take segments of our, so for our conference marketing, right? We would take segments of our either past attendees or just our current members or something like that, and we would
yeah.
take them out of our e-blast system, right? And I would potentially send an email directly from my email that was
Okay.
plain text that said, "Hey, John, I noticed you haven't registered for IBEX yet. Is there something I can do to help you?" And I would see some great engagement, and that's
Yeah,
where that would give me a little taste of what Prop Fuel does because they
yeah.
could respond to me directly. It felt more personal. The only difference with that was, um, it's so much harder to build in anything actionable. Like
Right, right.
you can kind of put a button, which is just a link that's highlighted or something like
Yeah,
that. And so I feel like Prop Fuel does similar things to
yeah.
that with all of those opportunities for engagement as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. And I think too about the scalability like that. Like, I love the idea of like experimenting with that, but then you get to a point where like you're doing that and you're getting so many replies that it lacks a scalability to it.
Mhm.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah, and even like sending limits. Like I was hitting sending
Yeah.
limits, where you're going to be seen as spam or doing it
Right.
multiple days in a row or things like that, were some challenges that we had with that. And then, as you mentioned, like response capabilities, we share the responsibility of Prop Fuel responses
Yeah.
through like our membership inbox. And so we as a team can reply to people and see
Yeah.
that someone else has addressed it very quickly and
Yeah.
easily, all kept within Prop Fuel. So that helps with that too. But I definitely understand like the testing, and that's where like
Yeah.
text comes in and things like that. Because again, with 10,000 plus members for us, they are all somewhere different, doing something different. Some people are better off at 9 p.m. and so
Right.
testing those things is very smart.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Cool. Nice.
So this is a little bit about, a little bit back to what we talked about earlier about the kind of the unexpected results of some of these campaigns is just being able to hear directly from your members. As much as we try to have in-person events and we try to connect with our members, how often with 10,400 members do you pick up the phone and talk to them? Do you see them at an event and they get to speak to you? And for me, that is what this offers. Like I got more honest, direct feedback through these campaigns than I've ever been able to get in a one-on-one situation. And there's something about that. There's that little, maybe that little bit of keyboard courage, and maybe that little bit of being caught at the right time, or they've only opened it because they have the moment to hear to hear these things from our members. The maternity leave example was very accurate for us. We got like we lean very heavily on female membership, and that came back like boom, 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 like 3 or 4 the first day we sent this, and I was just like, that's something that never crossed my mind. I am
Yeah,
a
yeah,
woman. I have had a child, and it never crossed my mind. And it's like, okay, so these are people who need 9 to 12 months potentially, whatever. And it
yeah,
makes sense to go back to them and say, I hope you're having a wonderful time with your bundle of joy. And like, how
yeah,
personal is that moment, right? To be able to say that. And so, but then again, yeah, hearing, can't afford it this year, or my employer no longer pays for it, or I'm retired. We have like personal responses that we already had to all of those things that we weren't able to give to people. So we have a
yeah.
discount for retired members. We have, we did start through this campaign offering quarterly payments on membership as sort of like a
Hmm.
trial, because we've never hosted that like in our AMS, but we were like, is that gonna move the needle or is it not? Like, and so we tried that. We only had one member actually do the quarterly payments, so we kept them, but also we did kind of learn that it didn't move in a
Yeah,
major way, move the needle. And then a note that I have there at the bottom is that even responses that may feel or seem or appear to be negative are still equally insightful, actionable, and helpful. Something that we saw, we are um, not a state, or national sort of like society, right?
right.
Since we're in a specialty, we do not go to Capitol Hill. We don't do a lot of things that involve like political and policy. And so because of that, we try to remain very neutral, right? We have 10,400 unique members, all coming from different places. And so we
Yeah,
do remain fairly neutral. And I was getting some political responses of, what programs our dollars were being spent on. And I actually really was, I won't say happy, right? But pleased to hear that, because
yeah.
would those members have called me to tell me that they were dissatisfied?
Exactly.
Would they have, and also, is it better than them doing Google or some social media blast about how
Yeah,
you spent their dollars, right? And then I was able to like have that concrete thing to take to my board and say, I've now heard this exact same response 4 times. These members come from different places. They don't know each other. They weren't trying to, prove something. And that has been really valuable too.
that's powerful. Yeah, that's really, yeah. There's sometimes those negative, insights or points of feedback from members can sting, but at the same time, that's that can be some of the ways in which you kind of curate some of the best members. I mean, through that
That's right.
friction.
And be able to reply to them. I didn't
Yeah,
put them in the bucket of they can't afford membership, and I didn't put them in the bucket of, they don't like the education. It's not high level enough. Like you could just fill that gap in however you want, but when you hear directly from them, you can actually address what might be the issue.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yep, yep, that makes perfect sense.
So we kind of started going into this a little bit, with the personalization and follow-ups, timing, maybe based on maternity leave or retirement or things like that. But one thing we haven't really gotten to yet that made a big impact for us is, we have this buzzword of segments. And like everything in marketing, I feel like it's easy for people to get up and say, you should be segmenting, you should be personalizing. And you're like, okay, but how? Um,
Yeah,
and this kind of inadvertently, I guess I will say, as like coming into it may not have been something I expected, is these segmented lists. So one example listed here is a do not disturb list. We've been able to kind of say, you know what, over the years, there's been these members who said, I don't want to be bothered anymore or involved anymore for whatever personal reason, right? And then I was always kind of like, and I was always like, how do I make sure? So I would be literally manually checking lists just to make sure that that person didn't get called in by some trigger into a list. And now we can put these criteria on lists based on
mhm.
prop fuel responses, based on other things, based on things from the AMS, and
Yeah,
create these different segments, of a do not disturb list. And like a recent example of that is that, because they're now telling us they don't plan to renew, it's not very responsible, in my opinion, to say, okay, cool, you're not renewing. And then a month later, what feels like it's unrelated is like we have a member only event. And if I'm
Mm,
marketing a member only event to them 1 month later when they
yeah,
told me they weren't going to renew, they're like, I have to renew to go to that. Like, why are you? I just told you I wasn't renewing. And I feel like as the member, I would be like, you're not listening to me, you
right,
know?
right,
And so
exactly.
now, yeah, I'm able to pull everyone who said no for whatever reason in the last however much of my renewal campaign and not market our spring symposium to them. And so it's like all the dots are
Yeah,
connecting that
yeah,
I wasn't even able to like really understand before.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's the difference between like having the real like, source intent, so to speak,
Yeah.
and the guesswork of behavioral data. Like I love that too. Like I think about like, and I don't know the intricacies of this for y'all, but like I think about sometimes when clients do like new member onboarding campaigns and like if continuing education or just educational programming is a big part of what they offer, naturally they're offering it across lots of different formats. So you have, online on demand, online live webinar, webcast. You have, journals, you have, podcasts or audio only. You have all these different formats. And the reality is, what most associations do is they'll send 6 to 8 emails telling everyone about all these formats and all the great things they should do. And you can actually condense all that down into like one email and a new member onboarding campaign, which is like, how do you prefer to learn? They
Right.
select the answer. And then what we can do is put them into a list and just tell them about that stuff. So we don't need to tell them about everything else. Maybe we come back at some point and validate and say, like, hey, you previously told us on demand is the way you prefer to learn. Is that still the case? Or are these any of these other formats interest you? But I think about like what y'all do with continuing education. I mean, just like that level of simple, smart segmentation can be really impactful.
Absolutely. And like if somebody can't travel or, make it to in-person events, then you are just giving them one extra thing they didn't need to take their time to read. And so
Exactly.
as you can, and I do not want to oversimplify because I know if I am attending a webinar like all of you are, I'm like, okay, I understand, but how and when and association teams are small. So it's a process, right? It's a marathon.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
each time you get to increase the personalization, it's not going to happen overnight. But each time you get to do that by these lists that are automatically being built, you have an advantage and you get to resonate with your members that much more. And it does start to, because they're automated, it does start to become easier and easier to do that. They answer something, they get put in a list. You didn't have to go in, you didn't have to check it, you didn't have to follow, through the steps of the spreadsheet and
Yeah.
all the things. And so it starts to feel possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
So here's just kind of an overview. Most of this, a little bit of it has not been mentioned before, but so the total of the renewal and win back campaign initiatives was the 286,000 plus dollars in direct revenue that I can go to my board and say this, whatever we pay for our prop fuel subscription. Now, like it's coming from, the marketing team to the board or the executive team, right? You can just say like, this is what makes this worth it. We could never like put actual revenue on an email system, any kind of software as a service, right? And so now we can do that and we can say 1,571 members were able to be reminded enough and quickly enough to not lapse for a whole year and not, miss out on things and all that. And so that is a really great thing to be able, obviously, just the renewals by themselves, but to be able to report on it is very powerful because as marketers, we are trying so many things and there is trial and error, but to be able to put the numbers with it is so helpful for me to feel confident in the decisions that I'm making. And so the retention rate that you can see the change. So not just, hey, we still got renewals. Okay, great. You're seeing that growth in retention, a 22% increase from 24 to 25, with a little reminder again that for 2025, that was only live from like May 27th to the end of the year. So you're looking at,
Mm,
pretty much 6, 7 months. Um, and then our lapsed members also decreased by 16%, which is essentially, a similar thing, but kind of coming
yeah.
from two different functionalities there. Um,
Love
and
that.
as I mentioned before, I had tested some quarterly payments based on people's responses. That was something we never like made the move to do until we heard it directly from them. And so, yeah, this is kind of our results of trying this campaign for what
Yeah.
I consider to be still new.
Yeah. So a question did come in, and maybe honestly, it's probably more impactful hearing your experience than me kind of talking about it. If you're okay with it. So someone asked, how hard is it to set up and maintain integrations between PropFuel and your AMS, along or between your AMS, your email system, and PropFuel to allow for segmentation based on PropFuel responses. So I mean, yeah, I kind of take those as two parts, like how easy is the integration to set up, and then yeah, you kind of talked about the segmentation piece.
Yeah, and it sounds like this person is also mentioning like another email
Yeah.
system, I
Yeah.
think is how I'm hearing that. So
Yeah.
that is something that so part one would be just the AMS to PropFuel was a very simple setup. And I did, of course, check with PropFuel before even starting my contract, do you have experience with my AMS? Like, have you done this successfully? And they already had. And so that was very, very direct and simple. Also, I will say, like the PropFuel customer service team, and I'm not, I will say this, it sounds cheesy, but like I say all the time, I work with a lot of vendors, a lot of software, a lot of service providers, and the sort of nickeling and diming on just customer service to me is so challenging. And PropFuel is not like that. They are available. They are available that day a lot of times to jump on a call and go, I thought this, for example, I thought this list was going to show me conversions of people who engaged with this campaign, but it looks like it's just anybody who renewed who received this email. Okay, let's look at it. Boom, boom, boom. And it was done. It was changed for me to see what I thought I was seeing. And so that is very helpful with that integration process. And they, they worked with YM when, sorry, we're with your membership for our
Yeah,
AMS.
you're good. You're
Um,
good.
with them when needed for the API situation, everything. I didn't have to, I am not a software person. I'm not a API person. And so I didn't have to be a very big piece of that puzzle. And then the second kind of question there with the other email software. That's actually something I'm still working on. PropFuel has recommended to me to do sort of an intent, what I think we're calling kind of an intent campaign to
Yeah.
my full database, because that's something that I inherited, is just a database of people who have come from a million things in my other email software. So we're with Constant Contact in that way. And so I have 51,000 emails in there that are old showgoers, old members, vendors, just all kinds of things. And I have never been able to validate that in any way. And so something that's been proposed that I have not started yet, would be to take that contact list and do a PropFuel campaign to them to say, because we have never had like our unsub settings be specific. Like I only want this
Yeah.
type of
Yeah.
email. And that of course it feels like a blessing and a curse, but I do think personalization is what's expected now. And so we were going to use PropFuel to say, here's all of these contacts. Like, what would you like to hear from us? Nothing at all, because
Yeah.
sending it to 51,000 isn't going to benefit me if 20,000 of them hope they never hear from us again.
Exactly.
But I hope that kind of answers the question. I haven't
Yeah, that's
mastered
great.
that, but it's kind of something that we've been discussing.
Yeah, and I could put a little bit more context to it too, just for the person that asked. So we have somewhere in the range of 50 to 60 different integrations, pretty much any AMS out there from Mimus to YM to Personify to Nimble, Salesforce, Dynamics, all of them. And they're all two-way integrations, no coding, no customization required, all very simple to implement. And then a lot of our clients also integrate their email platform with PropFuel. And so what that ultimately looks like is a few different things, but basically we can integrate to sync up the opt-outs and the unsubscribes. They can be kind of a global opt-out. They can be preference-based. So we have all of that logic kind of built in. And we have integrations with all the primary platforms, like Lauren said, from Constant Contact to HubSpot, Informs, Real Magnet, et cetera. But the other thing too is we can integrate them together to basically take PropFuel answers and put people into segments, lists, kind of those intent buckets on the email side of things. Yeah, there's a lot that can be done there. Um, all right, turning lapsed members into loyalists. I think we talked a lot about some of this.
I was gonna say, I think we've touched on a lot of it, but again, I think loyalists is such a cool word and concept.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, one of my favorite books is called Zombie Loyalists, if anyone hasn't read it. It's a great marketing book, but it
Yeah.
is really something that you kind of dig into. It's like, what are these personas? Who are these folks? And how can I make sure that, I'm doing what they expect to turn them into a loyalist? And so I think all of these things help you to see that, right? So if they are leaving, because as a specialty, people can be a veterinarian, come into emergency and critical care, and leave emergency and critical care. And although our education is great for general care as well, that does, change sort of their position. And so being able to understand things like that, in addition to maybe maternity leave, or, there is a lot of burnout and compassion fatigue associated with veterinary care alone, and especially emergency and critical care. And some of them do leave the specialty altogether and the field of veterinary care altogether. And again, us knowing that helps us to know who are the loyalists and who are we no longer needing to contact. And so then finding those loyalists are the people who, when you go personally and say, "Hey, I am so sorry that you don't think you can afford this year. Would it help you if we did quarterly payments?" Then that's gonna be that memorable experience of, I thought I was gonna miss out on the journal, and I thought I was gonna miss out on these things that I've been relying on because this is a tough year for me. And now I can take advantage of all of those things. No harm, no foul on our end or their end. And that's going to be that person who shares that story. They're going to be the one who tells their coworkers, "Hey, you know what? I was in a tough spot, and Vex, really worked with me."
Yep.
Or more maternity leave. Like I mentioned earlier, I mean, if I had gone on maternity leave and come back and had an email 3 months later or so, "Hey, how's your little one? I hope your maternity leave was fun and restful and all the million things put together. Just let us know if you need anything or you're ready to, jump back into Vex." I just would have been blown away by that,
Right?
and that
Yeah.
creates those kind of alpha alpha members, right? That are the ones spreading the word without you having done really much different at all except paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are the wow moments. Like, I mean, yeah, we talk a lot about the idea that members kind of their last, this isn't exactly true, but I'd say things are kind of going in this direction that a member's last experience from a personal, digital standpoint with, your Amazon or your, Stitch Fit or Stitch Fit
Yeah.
or your, pick your service is now their expectation when they come back to the association experience. And so, like to your point, that's what's happening for consumers is that sort of, personalization. So, like to have that as an association, that would be really compelling. So that actually, there was a question asked, and I'm going to ask it. I have a little I want to offer a little kind of boilerplate perspective on it, and then I'm curious your opinion. So the person asked, how do you communicate your value proposition for converting lapsed members? And I would kind of turn that around. This is gonna may sound kind of strange. I don't think that's the right question. I think the right question actually is, how do you understand what matters to the lapsed members to align with their value versus like impressing the association's value proposition on the member? Because at the end of the day, like I don't know that that's that important. I think the more important thing is understanding like what matters to that lapsed member and how can you meet them where they're at. I'm curious your perspective on that, and you tell me I'm dead wrong if I am.
No, I think you make a great point. Something again, like I had mentioned earlier, on was the sort of inherited beliefs and things like that. So I
Yeah.
think that you are given when you start working somewhere just this generalization of your members, right? And I think that if you can't, so then I took those, and that's exactly what my response options, my reasons for not renewing, are basically
Hmm.
all of the myths or non-myths I've been told since I started working here. And then I'm able to sort of sort that out. And then
Yeah.
if I do find, so if I get 33% of the people who told me they're not renewing telling me that it's because they're not attending a VEX or IBEX meeting this year, then, and that's what I've always heard. I'm like, okay, we're right about that. So how do we add value that isn't associated to an in-person meeting, right? And then I'm looking at how I can align with them in a year that if they are one of those people, they may not have been a member. So anything like that would be their value, right? And what what they still want to spend their hard-earned money on. And so I think you're right, Ryan. And I
Yeah.
understand the question as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
Mhm.
Um, so things that we can do before members are gone. So I think a little bit about a few of these things. So I mean, we talked a lot about this idea of instead of just impressing information and dumping information out on the member, before they're gone, like ask one genuine question, something during that renewal cycle. It can be direct, it can be, are you planning to renew your membership? It could even just be something along the lines of like, how has your experience been as a member? Because like you can glean insight from that. I mean, some of our clients will even lead and I don't think this is the best way to do it, but some of our clients do it. They'll lead that renewal campaign off with something along the lines of a net promoter score question, like, "Hey, how willing are you to suggest membership when said organization to a colleague?" Because at the end of the day, like what you can do with that is it becomes pretty dynamic data. So if someone tells you a four, they're probably not renewing. And so what you can then do, I mean, just think about it in the prop fuel context, what we do with that is we branch them immediately to a question, say, what would make your experience as a member better? So you're not asking them directly, are you planning to renew or not? You're just asking them a genuine question about their experience and then what could make it better. And then you could use that as a conversation point to pick up with that individual. Um, and then, naturally from there, what we want to do is we want to build journeys around those answers. So often, too often, what it ends up happening is a lot of associations build journeys around um, kind of what they think the journeys should be, unfounded information, behavioral data, or just like these pre-built journeys that are very linear. And so what we want to do is, in the context of this, use that intent data and connect with those undecided members, or maybe even connect with those members who definitively said no, and here's why. But building a journey around each one of those individual experiences becomes critical, as does a suppression strategy. So when someone gives you a reason, like listen. I mean, you're getting that data. It's extremely valuable, but then listen and honor it, and re-engage at the right time because that's part of the power of this. I mean, exactly to one of your points, Lauren. You talk about like if someone tells you they're not renewing, and then you have this members only event coming up, there's no reason to send them the members only event communication. And in a world that doesn't involve prop fuel, like everything's going to everyone. So you're just sending a renewal email and you don't know their intent, and then you're sending them members only email. And probably what's happening is those people who weren't planning on renewing, that's eroding their perspective of membership even more because they're already like, I'm not going to renew, but you have no idea. And then you send them something about a members only event, and that's just like a nail in the coffin. I mean, it becomes there is a huge erosion factor. And then or measure what actually drove those renewals, like tying things back from an attribution standpoint, and the ROI side of things becomes extremely critical. What we see is, across associations, this is a really good example, but this is AMFT, Marriage and Family Therapists. And so, without going too deep into this, basically the high level perspective or the high level insight here is they kind of traded off like their previous renewal process involved a series of AMS reminders out of IMS and a campaign, an email marketing campaign out of Informs. And they were your traditional, renewal emails. Hey, your uh, renewal's coming up. Here's the 8 member benefits that we offer. Renew now. Repackage that email a little bit, send it 15 days later, so on and so forth. And they took the approach that we've, seen that Vex is using Prop Fuel, and the changes were pretty dramatic. There were 2 or 3 critical changes. The first one is the overall like on time renewals. So this kind of this green bar here is people that were renewing in the 0 to 1 month time frame. So previously they were 80.5%. And we got this up to almost 93%. So what happens there is that's a significant impact. You're getting money quicker. You're having to spend fewer resources to chase after renewals. What they also did is they condensed down those renewals. So if you look here and you look at the year prior to Prop Fuel, which is the 2021 year, they had a lot of people that were falling into that, 6 to 9 month, 9 to 12 months, so on and so forth. And what everyone here knows is what it costs to go get those renewals. Those renewals are, huge people time, resources, and then also probably other channels. You're probably chasing those other ones with mailers and phone calls and all sorts of different things. And so they were able to condense all that down. They were able to get, the bulk of people in the 0 to 1 month, and then get a lot in basically that, 3 to 6 month kind of time frame. They didn't have all those ones bleeding out. They overall also increased their just overarching renewal rate from 82 to 89% in that 1 year of switching the process from Informs to PropFuel. So, pretty common kind of things that we see with clients from a results standpoint. Um, you know, at a very high level, we've done kind of some analysis over the last month or so, and I won't again to go too far into this, but what we've seen is we basically used all the public facing data, and kind of looked at all associations in the U.S. public facing data from 990s, basically pulling 990s, and looked at clients and non-clients. And clients, basically, we looked at like when did they come on with PropFuel and the year prior to when they came on and the year after they were using PropFuel. Basically, what we were trying to validate is like, are clients seeing an uptick in revenue from using PropFuel? And what we're able to glean, it was, I mean, it was just black and white in the data, is that clients who were, or associations using PropFuel, the year after they started, they saw on average across all of our clients an 8.68% increase in their last reported annual revenue. And the thing that was interesting about it is then the non-PropFuel associations, their average year over year reported revenue increase was 0.98%. So we're about 9 times greater than that. So the thing that, the most impactful thing from our standpoint is like, yeah, driving in great engagement and you doing all these micro level things is great, but like it really has a significant impact on revenue. And that's where we see 72% of our clients grew their revenue after 1 year of using PropFuel. So it's, the results are there from a revenue standpoint. And I say that because, obviously Vex has seen them, but, we see it across vast majority of our clients. All right, a couple of things, and then we're about at time. So I'm going to post a link in the chat. If you're interested in PropFuel, from a learning more for your association, doing a demo, and learning about how PropFuel can specifically provide value to your association, you can use that link and you can set up a demo with us of PropFuel. You can use these QR codes. So to get today's slide in the Vex case study. So that's the QR code, the big one on the left, and then the small one is also in case it's easier to just snap it with your phone to book a demo. Lauren, any parting words? And before you say that, let me first of all say I can't thank you enough. We can't thank you enough for taking your time, being a part of this, and just being such a valuable client and partner. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. The kind of two last things I would say quickly, they're very separate thoughts, but Ryan had mentioned like an NPS, and I just wanted to say that we were doing a conference eval for many years. It was available digitally and like a physical copy, and we had in a year where we had about 5,000 attendees. I think we had 67 responses. It was also incentivized and everything like that. And then just this past conference, we switched it over into PropFuel. It was literally one question, like, would you give this a 0 to 10? Um, and we got 2,200 responses.
Wow.
And so that was unreal. And I attribute that to it's how simple it is, how you can visually tell it's one quick question and give your response. Um, and it was just simple and kind of to the person who mentioned like the plain text. It's not plain text, but it is just like so simple and straightforward. So that
Yeah.
would kind of lead me into my second quick thing, which was
Yeah. Please.
when I was referred to PropFuel by someone, they were calling it the magic. And this person is very funny. And And I'm like so like dig in and tell me the real how it works. And he was like, no, it's just magic. You just have to try it. It's magic. And I'm like, okay, I need to know what the magic is. But I think in hindsight, I would say like the magic is simple. So when I interview people, I think all positions are customer service positions, right? And when people say in their answer of how they approach customer service, everyone just wants to be heard. When they use those words, I'm like,
Mm,
this person knows customer service. Because the majority of the time, people just want their moment and they want to be heard. And then resolutions can come. And I think that that is the magic of Prop Fuel, right? Is
mm,
that you are given so many more chances. For that one time, for those 10 times you have nothing to say, for that one time you had either an awesome experience or a not as good experience as you expected, you can be heard immediately, responded to. It's in an automated way on our end that we're not overwhelmed with trying to individually
yeah.
respond. And that's just kind of my like closing thought.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's I feel like I'm like you, like I'm not saying you are this, but I'm kind of can be a skeptic like of like, okay, that's cool, but like let's actually see how it
Yeah.
works. So no, I love that. Thank you so much. I mean, your insight is just awesome. So thank you so much. And yeah, with that, that's going to end our webinar. Thank you everyone for taking the time. And Lauren, thank you so much again, and thank you to Vex. Have a great day, everyone, and look forward to talking with y'all soon.
Thanks again for having me.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.